Hello, hello, everyone. Today I get to host the fantastic Jeanie Griffin. Hi, Jeanie. How are you today?
I'm very well. Well, that's a lie. I'm having allergies today, so that's why I sound kind of stuffy.
A little
How are
stuff.
you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Here in Missouri, it is rainy and very humid.
Oh, yuck. No,
Yeah.
no, I'm in California, and it's our typical picture postcard, beautiful blue sky, warm in the sun, chilly in the shade.
hmm
But because we've had so much rain, we now have lots of flowers.
Well,
And
that's exciting.
so we're all sneezing. I was out for Mother's Day brunch and then went to the grocery store yesterday, and everywhere you're going, so achoo, achoo. So
Mhm.
I look like I've been on like a 3-day drunk, but I promise you I have not. So after it.
So let me read a little bit about you to introduce you. So Jeanie Griffin is founder of the Los Angeles business Fresh Outta Plans, Three Pillars to Peace. Clients contact Fresh Out of Plans for lack of purpose questions, spiritual difficulties, stagnant careers, challenging relationships, codependency, life passages, substance use challenges, anxiety, and depression. Fresh Out of Plans offers consulting, life coaching, individual and couple sessions, group work, virtual sessions, online courses, and VIP retreats that transform clients so they live happily while fulfilling their soul's purpose. I love it. Jeanie is an addictions and trauma therapist, a life coach, keynote speaker, spiritual guide, retreat leader, best-selling author, grandmother of three, and a slave to two cats. Jeanie Griffin is an international best-selling author, keynote speaker, spiritual guide, life coach, and psychotherapist. Her podcast, The Recovered Therapist, and her program, Fresh Out of Plans, teach people ways to live in peace, love, and joy, even in the middle of drama and chaos. Her stories appear in three #1 international best-selling books, Women Who Rise, Leading with Legacy, and Dear Younger Self, which is how we actually met.
Absolutely.
Signed copies are available on her website. She is licensed in California and Texas as a therapist. And I'll read your website later and we'll go over how to get in your world and all of that good stuff. But I want to chat with you really about you have a lot going on and you do a lot, which is amazing.
Well, I think probably what I would tell just anybody is the day of having a job and working for a company and getting the gold watch is over. I have reinvented myself 500 times, and I just get bored.
Mm,
So, and I just move along with what is in front of me.
right.
So, I was a high school teacher long before it was anything else, and I taught high school American history and government, which is not way up there on a lot of people's best best memories of school.
Mhm.
But I loved working with people. Excuse me. And also, um, history's about people. So the one thing that has permeated everything I did, and even up to now, is I kept asking myself, what do you know? And the thing I know is people. I love them. I'm fascinated. I think we are the weirdest thing on the planet. The squirrels make a lot more sense.
Yep.
The rivers make a lot more sense. And then there is this thing called the human.
Right.
We're still way behind the rest of the
Oh,
creatures.
goodness.
So
Yes. Yeah, we're a mystery. That is correct.
it sure is.
So,
So, I just got into studying people, and um, it took time off after I was a high school teacher for a while to have a child, and stayed home mom. And then I thought, okay, I want to go back to graduate school and study addiction, because I grew up in an alcoholic home. So that's how that started.
okay. Okay. So tell me a little bit about your history.
Well, I grew up in South Texas, was actually born in Chicago, and then we moved to South Texas. I was four of four children, and my dad was an alcoholic. And I want to say that we had a very loving home, and he was a loving alcoholic. And you can be, a lot of times when you say alcoholism or someone was alcoholic, then people immediately think of brutality and hideous scenes. We all knew we were loved, but living with an unpredictable factor, in this case, alcoholism, really affects the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, I was speaking for my sisters and brother, I thought that addiction had left our home when my dad left when I was 13, and he died when I was 15. So I thought, okay, that's the end of that. That's the end of addiction. And I couldn't have been more wrong. What I know today is what shapes us in our formative years is what we continue to look for as we grow. And I'm not saying you go running out to go look for an alcoholic to marry, but if you haven't finished some business growing up, that's what you end up calling to you.
Right.
So anyway, today I work a lot with clients to go back and say, okay, this is not about blaming anybody. It's not about tattling on anybody. Let's go see what was happening in the house that you grew up in, and how did you make yourself safe? What ways did you make yourself safe?
Mm-hmm.
So, and that has to do with a lot of thinking. Sometimes we're shaped or warped, depending on how you want to see it, or mutated by things somebody says to us. Like, oh, well, Jeanie, yeah, you can sing pretty well, but you really can't draw. And so I go away thinking I can't draw.
Right.
Or a teacher says, or something. But that's not the most damaging. The most damaging is what we say to ourselves based on very little information.
Mm-hmm.
So I was 5, I remember, when I kept thinking, I knew my dad had something that he couldn't really get over. It was bigger than he was. Didn't quite understand it. I didn't understand it for many years because we didn't know about it so much. But I kept thinking, if I could make myself cute enough, sweet enough, smart enough, funny enough, then maybe he would not drink.
Right.
And then we'd live happily ever after. So I made that decision based on me just seeing that little tiny world, and said, okay, Jeanie, it's your job to make him happy. And then I looked at my mom, who was severely depressed. Who wouldn't be? An alcoholic who couldn't really work, and 4 children. And, she had 2 years out of a college degree. So she was depressed. And I remember sitting and watching her thinking, I know, if I can make her happy, she won't drink. I mean, she won't get mad at him. She won't be depressed. And if they don't fight, then we'll all live happily ever after.
Right.
So, it's those messages that we tell ourselves. I call them rules that are in your head that we don't even know we have. And that's what's still making decisions. So years later, when, I couldn't do enough to make you happy, it's like I was letting that little girl make the decisions for my life.
Right.
So we have to go back and see, what is it that she believed? And do I want to let her still be in charge or not? And then it's my job to reparent her and say, let me get this today.
Mm-hmm.
You rest. It's my job. I'll take care of us.
Right.
So that kind of shaped my life, and I've dedicated my life to helping families. I do intensive family programs at treatment centers where someone is in there for mental health or substance problems. And I've done thousands and thousands of family programs with family members. And it's my ardent wish to help restore the hope and the love, even in spite of the bad things that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds stupid to say, but that is really easy to do if everybody's willing.
Right.
Everybody's willing to try. Well, I don't like that word. If they're willing to take action and look at my behavior. Now, what are the tools I'm learning? And then to practice those.
Mm-hmm.
So I named my business Fresh Out of Plans because I'm not very patient with blamers and whiners.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're still in the whining stage, if you're still in the blaming stage, um, walk on by. When you don't have any plans and none of your plans work, call me. I'll be happy to help you.
Right.
But not if you're still blaming people and wanting to be right and all that other stuff. But when you're committed to actually taking action, doing the homework I assign, because I'm still a teacher,
Mm-hmm.
taking notes, practicing new behavior, then yeah, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I tell families, if you're in the middle of starting an argument, you can always stop and say, uh-oh, I've relapsed into old behavior. Can we take a minute and let me regroup?
Yep.
I take back that I called you a name.
Right.
We
do the same thing here. It's like almost like we wave a white flag where we say, oh, hold on. Like one of us will catch it before it excels into something to where we say things or do things that we really don't mean in the heat of the moment, or before that argument just takes off. And, for Jane, my husband and myself, it'll be like, well, you did this or you did that, or, and then it's all of a sudden like one of us just goes, white flag, we need to take a time out. Yeah. This is important to talk about, whatever the case may be, but let's, I'm going to go my separate ways for 10, 20 minutes, whatever the time. And then even at that, if I'm still, or if he's still not ready to actually talk about it, we still say, I still want to come back to this, but I still need more time, rather than just letting it refuel a further argument that takes us hours to get over, or days, or whatever the case.
Absolutely. And I get so tired of people. Well, I call my podcast, which really isn't a podcast. You have a podcast, you interview people. I don't. I think of a subject and I talk. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a audio thinking process. It's called The Recovered Therapist, not because I'm in recovery, but because I have unlearned and relearned things that I was taught in graduate school that I don't use anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So I laugh and say, I'm recovered from therapy. People say, well, therapy doesn't work. I was in therapy and it didn't work. Well, that's like saying, well, I got the prescription filled, but it didn't work because you didn't take it. You didn't do anything with it. Mm-hmm. Now, and it's an interactive. I tell my clients, yes, you're going to have a lot of life coaching. You'll probably have some unsolicited advice, but you need to say, this isn't working, or I tried this. One of the techniques I have, very much like what you're talking about, is I'll dream up a safe word, and it's an absurd word. It's something that doesn't have anything to do with it. Yesterday, I was working with a couple, and I've worked with them for a long time, and this guy just will not. He's so impulsive that he knows better, but he just can't help himself. And so finally I said, all right, are you willing to have your wife hold up a mirror and let you know when you're doing this, when you're jumping the gun and being impatient? He said, yes. And I said, all right. So we dreamed up a code word, and the word he wanted to use was hamburger.
Okay.
Said, okay. Or cheeseburger, one of the two.
Right.
Something that is absurd. Or, one couple uses asparagus. It's fine. When you throw that out, it's like, if you get mad at the word of asparagus or hamburger being thrown out, then you're over the top. It's really time to take a break.
Right. Say time out. We really, really, really need to pause this conversation. So there are times where even when we, even when one of us pulls the white flag or says, surrender, or whatever, we're trying to, create peace. There are times that one of us is still like ready to, we're still like, I'm not done. Like, I need to get this out, and you're wrong, or this is what you said, or, and the other one is like, no, for real, we have got to take, pineapple, or whatever we've yelled in the past, because then it's like, it almost triggers that of like, okay, maybe I do really need to go chill out for a little bit. Maybe I really do need to go take a walk. Maybe I do need to really go meditate for a few. And maybe the other person is not too far off with, calling it and saying, we need to take a break, because it happens. We all have different thoughts and feelings on things. And there comes times where you think you're right, or you definitely think that they're not right, or, whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
So yeah. So tell me about your books. Fill me in on these books.
Well, the first one that I did, Women Who Rise, is a real short summary of times in my life I've been fresh out of plans. My theory basically is that in the delivery room, we are issued an invisible backpack. And from the time we're 2 minutes old, we start putting things in there that work for us. They're solutions. And that thing gets real heavy after a while. So at some point in our lives, we have to take that backpack off our back and throw it down on the floor and take a look at it and say, what is in here that still works? What is in here that works, but is very bad for me? And what isn't working? And what can I use at certain times and not others? So nobody's willing to take that off and do that inventory until nothing in that backpack works anymore.
Right.
Now the whole world became fresh out of plans in COVID.
Right. Oh yeah.
So I became fresh out of plans, and I talk about that in Women Who Rise. I had a lot of deaths in my family. Both parents were dead by the time I was 21. A friend's 6-year-old was murdered. I had a lot of losses. And finally I thought, okay, I give. There's nothing in that works. And so that's kind of a summary of, and that is my main book that I'm writing. And that's going to be kind of the premise of that.
Mm-hmm.
Legacy, it's interesting, leading with legacy. You think of legacy as somebody who has a lot of money leaving a hospital wing or a book, I'm in LA, so there are a lot of rich people that have left a lot of good hospital things around and stuff. And I'm so glad they did, because I benefit from it. But it doesn't have to be a building. It can be, your legacy can be what you leave inside people, what your grandmother said, what your mother said, the recipe that someone uses. So I talk in terms of what are you leaving inside people? And that's kind of fueling this other book that I'm writing, because I want to leave something for my grandchildren, not to read about me, but to help them when they get into crisis A, B, or C. What did I do, and what did I recommend that people do, or so what are some of the tools that I used? And then, Dear Younger Self, I had a different take than a lot of people. A lot of people went in and wrote, my co-authors would go in and or I'd hear people on TikTok talking to their younger self and giving a bunch of advice. Right. And I thought, that didn't make sense. To me, I needed to go back and thank my younger self.
Mm-hmm.
For two things that she's been trying to teach me all my life, but I wasn't busy. I was, knew it all, so I wasn't listening. Mm-hmm. And those were two basic spiritual premises that I learned from this little girl. And one is that I am what I call an original recipe from the Creator. And I am, as an infant, I'm perfect, whole, and complete. And then it goes downhill from there. But it's this whole notion. Well, there was a time when I think it was in 6th grade. I think it was, that's the story goes, that I was in a Sunday school class, and this poor gentleman was trying to teach us something. And he was trying to teach me the concept of original sin, and that we children had original sin. And I wasn't buying it. I just, we didn't have deep spiritual concepts or conversations at home, but I just said, well, I don't have original sin. He kept saying, yes, you do. And I said, no, I don't. I try to be a good person. I wasn't in the Garden of Eden, and I don't have original sin. I thought, don't put that on me. I just intuitively knew that. And of course, my mother was a deacon in the church, and he was horrified. So after Sunday school, he ran to tell on me and told her, and gosh, I've got to hand it to her. all she said, did you say that? And I said, yes, I did. I don't have original sin. I try to be good. And she didn't say anything. And I thought, well, okay, I wasn't in trouble.
Right.
So it just always seemed to make sense. I didn't know what all that hullabaloo was. And then I remember in science class that people were taught, we were learning about the 7 eras and evolution, and people were having a hissy fit saying, no, that wasn't evolution. And I thought, why are y'all all in uproar over this? Excuse me for tickling my nose. And so in that 3rd book, I talked about that notion that there is an essence in us that changes form. We're in a different form in the womb. We're in a different form once we leave these bodies, and it never dies. And so my talk to my younger self is very grateful, thankful for her teaching me about my essence that never dies. So I'm not sure that a lot of people will. I went ahead and wrote it and asked my friends, does this make any sense to you? And I said, yes, this makes sense. And I said, well, that's because you like me, but I don't know that it makes sense to the average person. So anyway.
I loved your chapter. It made sense to me. I thought it was great. I think some of us had a bit of a different spin on it because, you know, for me, I wrote to myself just 10 years in the past. I didn't go, you know, all the way back, and I didn't give myself a ton of advice. I just went 10 years backwards to literally right about the time I was getting ready to be diagnosed with breast cancer. And, you know, my daughter had just been born and all of that. So it was just kind of writing to my younger self at age 32, you know, and saying, like, let me hold you for a little while. Let me whisper in your ear, like, it's going to be okay. I know you're really scared right now, but, you know, and so my story, was a little different too. Cause a lot of people did write to their younger selves with a lot of advice or a lot of, if you had known this, or, you know, I know all of these things happened, but you know, here I am now and I'm okay type thing, which was cool. We all had a little bit of a different spin on it, which I thought was pretty neat. So tell me more about you being a shamanic practitioner. So fill me in.
Okay. Well, like I said, I was raised in a Presbyterian church, which is not dogmatic, and it's I loved the community. I loved church suppers. I loved singing in the choir and all of that. However, when my dad died, of course, I was sad, and I rode my mom's coattails of faith on that one. But it was that was the first dead body I ever saw. And I would look at him and I would say, where did you go? You look like you're going to wake up.
Right.
And so I didn't know those were spiritual questions at the time. And I would ask questions, and my mom never lost faith. So I just kind of hung on to her. And then she got and died of cancer in 9 months, first diagnosis. And I became very bitter, very, very bitter. And I made a decision. I don't like you, God. I hate you, God. And that's the end of you. I don't need you, the horse you rode in on. And one of my character assets, that also is a defect, was self-reliance. And that really, I didn't need you. And I wouldn't ever let you get close. So when I had my daughter, I thought, I can't keep her. I need to expose her to a faith or a spiritual walk, but I don't care what it is. And so I began a little bit going back to see if I could stand organized religion. And the answer was no, I couldn't. But I know I'm taking too long to tell you this, but I'd always was intrigued by psychics and clairvoyants, not card readers necessarily, but people who actually could channel things. And I thought, wow. So I'm driving along Venice Boulevard here in LA, and I had run away from home at the ripe old age of 50. Hadn't been here long, and I heard this advertisement. There's a gathering of the shaman and the healers from all over the world in Big Bear. I thought, okay. I've got to go. And I thought, why do you have to go? You don't have to go. What are you talking about? You didn't even, I had a 14-year-old Honda, and I thought, it's not even get up the hill. And I don't know how to drive in hills. And so all this was swirling. Anyway, so I got online and I read about it. And there was the name of a lady who lived in Topanga, which is not, it's part of LA, up near Malibu. And I thought, I'm going to call her. So I called her and said, can I have an appointment? She said, sure. And I said, okay. So I drove up there and I thought, it might be weird. I don't know what this, and I had toyed with shamanism because I had read Michael Harner's book a long time ago when I was still living in Texas. And yet I would say, I think I want to go do some classes with Michael Harner and shamanism. And people say, what do you want to go do that for? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. So I met with Valerie, and when I walked in, I thought, she's too wacko. I'll just leave. And so I said, I don't know why I'm here, but I think we have work together. And she looked at me and she said, you've come to us to show you how to be an elder. And I started crying. I just burst into tears. I knew she was right, and I had no idea what that meant.
Mm-hmm.
I had a session with her that made a lot of sense. And she did something called a soul retrieval on me, which I love to do and seem to be kind of gifted in doing.
Ooh.
And so she said, I'm about to start some classes. I can't remember the timing of the year, but it was like in 2 months, she was going to start a 3-year course in shamanism and train us. So I said, I'd love to do it. And I mean, I had no money and no job, and it was pretty bleak, but I did. And for 3 years, I worked with her, and she taught me, and it was originally 12 other women, but it boiled down only to 8. And we went on medicine walks, we did vision quests, we did monthly retreats at her home. I learned lots of different aspects of it. And what I finally understood is that it was the bridge from the spirituality that I had thrown away in the form of organized religion. And it was the spirituality that really made sense to me, because it put me smack dab in the middle of nature.
Mm-hmm.
So today I work a lot with people. If they want formal shamanism, I teach them that. But if they don't, the core of what I do is help people on their spiritual walk. And so it's like I'm saying over and over, when the world doesn't make any sense, or if you're in the middle of that kind of argument we were talking about,
Mm-hmm.
go outside, watch a squirrel, pick 2 trees, look at them. They're not standing there saying, I have 437 leaves. Now, how many do you have?
Mm-hmm.
I got my tree certificate from so-and-so nursery. Where did you get? They're not doing any of that. They're just being a tree, waiting. I wrote a beautiful poem about waiting God's refilling. Just trees just stand there and they just wait for the proper soil, the proper rain, the proper everything, just being a tree. And I thought, oh, if I could be so patient for the delivery of what it is that I need, not necessarily what I want.
Mm-hmm.
So there, and with that came learning how to seek not the future, but validation through going on journeys, talking and listening to spirit guides, reading oracle cards, and then I made some oracle cards or daily affirmation cards that I happen to have here.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's like a lot of people get these. They're just thoughts for the day. It's like, okay, so maybe this morning I would get up and say, God, spirit, spirits, friends, the universe, mystery. I'm working with a gentleman today that has not sure what a higher power is. And I said, okay, call it the mystery. To be able to say, okay, what would you have me know today? And I take my little cards and I shuffle them, and I spread them out kind of like Vegas. You can see,
Yeah.
like this.
Yep.
Then I pull one, and let's see what it has to say today to our listeners.
Okay.
I know I am loved, valued, and appreciated.
Oh.
it's just little thoughts that kind of bring me back to center.
Mm-hmm.
So, so shamanism or spirituality. Today I have a faith in a, whatever it is, the mystery. And I don't have a problem using the word God. It doesn't conjure up, a lot of animosity. That is really the center of my life.
Mm-hmm.
And regardless of what is happening around, when I can go back inside and get grounded in knowing, and I have a community of people that continue to ground me in that knowing, then no matter what's happening out here, I can be at peace.
Right.
So I don't know whether that answered your question, but I talked a lot.
No, I loved it. I love it. I love it. Every time I hear you talk about it, I love it. I'm always so intrigued by everything. So if you had one piece of advice to give to anybody right now, what is one piece of advice that you would give to people?
Ooh, only one?
Or you could do your top three if you want to do your top three.
The first thing that came in my mind is don't take yourself so seriously, for one. There's got to be some humor. And when I was in my darkest days, I had no humor whatsoever. And I look for people like that are so dadgum serious. You got to learn to laugh at yourself. I mean, really, that's one. And you don't, and I don't mean beating yourself up. I mean just laughing at your humanity.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, you are a spiritual being. Stop looking outside yourself. Go in here. That's where your answers are. But you don't have to do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
You do it with a group of people who are also searching and are willing to look at their part in things, how you got where you are, and your wonderful qualities were created out of this creator's. People say we're created in the image and likeness of God. No, we're created out of that imagination. I mean, one thing I think I said on a podcast recently, go to Google, that's our God, and find pictures from the James Webb telescope. I mean,
Right.
Hubble was fantastic, but Hubble is just kindergarten compared to these pictures that are coming back now.
Right.
Oh my gosh. If you doubt that there is anything that is, even if you want to say, well, it's all random, it's beautiful random. And there are galaxies. It's like, you're not that important. I mean,
Right. We're just a tiny speck. Yeah, a tiny speck. Tiny.
And so everything that's such a drama today is like, just look out there. Just look out there. It always brings me back to just grounding. And speaking of that, take your shoes off, take your socks off, go stand in the dirt.
Mm-hmm.
We're full of energy. We're full of electric. That's why we get so, we're electric. We have, a combination. So the earth, bless her heart, she's agreed to transmute anything. So put your feet on the earth and let your toes wiggle in the dirt and send all that extraneous energy into Mother Earth. She'll transmute it. Transmute. She was here long before we are. She's going to be here long after.
It's one of my favorite things to do is be outside in the grass. Let my toes dig around in the grass, in the mud or dirt or whatever it is. But that's one of my favorite things. I never realized that, growing up, why I loved that so much. And then as I got older and started learning more about exactly what you're talking about, I thought, well, that's why I love being outside. That's why I love, like, James will come home and I'll be out there just standing in the grass, sometimes watering, sometimes doing whatever. But that was like my happy space. I just always wanted to be outside. And he was just like, it's so bizarre. And if he can't find me, he knows where to go look. I'm either out back or out front. It's somewhere.
Yeah. See, and that's what happened when we were kids. Not so much anymore. I mean, everybody's diagnosed anxiety, depression, and ADHD. But it's not attention deficit hyperactive disorder. It's attention deficit nature disorder. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, these children, it's not safe for them to go down the street or go outside without somebody watching them so they don't get stolen or whatever. But it's like we are so in need of that, and just being with nature, because we are creatures. We
Mhm.
need to be with other creatures on this planet.
Right. I could not agree more. Well, you've been fantastic today. I so appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so glad that I haven't had a hissy fit sneezing.
Right. No sneezing, thankfully, right? Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we can check out your website, which is freshoutaplans.com. And then I'll post your the link tree and all that so people can find you on your Recovered Therapist podcast. And then I think you've got YouTube also, right?
Yes, there's a lot of stuff that you can benefit free. A lot of people can't afford to go into therapy or coaching, but if you go to the YouTube channel, and also that's all free. I've got over 75 videos I did during COVID, and COVID is still around. And then the Recovered Therapist Weekly drops every Tuesday. There is a newsletter that also kind of goes along with it. If you want to, you can go to Fresh Outta Plans and sign up for the newsletter. But otherwise, you can benefit a lot from just the free stuff I've got out there.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. You've been so
Thank you.
wonderful. Thank you.
Always good to see you.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.